Hey folks, perhaps you're getting ready for the PMP exam or any of PMI's exams and you've had this recurring theme in your head, the differences between the roles that you've heard so much about. Project manager, customer, product owner, scrum master, developers, so many roles. So I'm going to break down in a matrix today the roles and responsibilities in a hybrid environment to make them totally clear. I also have a PDF which I'll share with you at the end so that you can download it and read it. It's a humongous document, but it's the beginning of breaking down fact from fiction, thinking about each role in the world of Agile, in the world of Predictive, and the merging of the worlds to give you hybrid. It's important that you as a professional understands this. So let's jump straight into what I have behind me. Again, I'm going to share this with you at the end. So there's going to be stuff here that you don't see as clearly, and that's okay. You'll be able to go back and take a look at the document. So right here at the top, I have the roles. We have the project manager, the sponsor, the customer, the product owner, the scrum master, and developers. On the left-hand side, I have the primary role, the leadership aspect, the skills aspect of every one of those. So it's about a 15x7 matrix. This is a big document. We cannot go through every single thing, but I'm going to highlight the top of the waves for you. So let's talk about the primary role of each of these. Project manager. Primary role is to manage the project management plan, schedule, budget, resources, risks, and all of those other knowledge areas. The sponsor has a role in providing funding and support for the project. The customer defines the business requirements and provides feedback on project deliverables. The product owner defines and prioritizes product features. You see the change in language? We went from project type of language to product specific language for the product owner. So the product owner defines and prioritizes product features, ensures that the product meets business objectives. The Scrum Master facilitates, that's the key word, Scrum events, ensures that the team follows Agile principles and practices, and acts as an impediment remover, if you will. Developers. Developers develop, the word developer, develop, and test code. And that is the primary role. Now, in terms of leadership, the project manager leads the project team, the sponsor sets direction and vision for the project, the customer provides input on project goals and direction. The product owner provides vision, very important, and direction for product development, because if the team is stuck, they should be looking to the product owner. The Scrum Master facilitates team collaboration and continuous improvement, and the developers take initiative in problem solving and technical execution. When it comes to skills, project managers should have strong organizational planning and leadership skills. The sponsor should have financial management skills. The customer should have knowledge of business operations. The product owner should have knowledge of product domain, prioritization, and business objectives. The Scrum Master should have the ability to facilitate, coach, and resolve conflict, as far as bringing people to the table to solve the conflict, not solving it for them. And the developers, technical expertise, problem-solving skills, and so on. When it comes to the deliverables, the project manager should be on top of the project management plan, schedule, budget, status reports, risk management plans, all those knowledge area type of plans. The sponsor is involved in the funding of the project and providing resources for the project, approval of the project management plan and deliverables. The customer is involved in business requirements and feedback on project deliverables. The product owner is involved in the product roadmap, which gives direction and focus for the product, release plans, and product backlog. The Scrum Master is part of the team, obviously, the Scrum team, but when it comes to the sprint backlog, sprint reviews, team retrospectives, the Scrum Master may get more involved. For those of you Scrum Masters who are in software applications, a lot of times it falls on the Scrum Master to go into Jira and do updates. And it doesn't have to be that way, because team members can also take the initiative and do some of that stuff themselves if they want to. And then for the developers, we have code that meets product requirements and quality standards. So let's go down a little bit more. Let's go beyond deliverables to focus. So I'm going to freeze this over here just so that you can see things better. Let's freeze that top row and let's go down beyond deliverables to focus. So project manager focuses on process and delivery. The sponsor focuses on financial management. The customer focuses on business needs and requirements. The product owner focuses on the product vision, prioritization, business value. Scrum Master focuses on agile principles, collaboration, and improvement. And the developers focus on technical execution. Going down to responsibility, we have the project manager is responsible for project success, which is unfortunate. Even in a traditional environment, it now sounds unfortunate. Everything falls on the PM. Then we have the sponsor providing resources and support, the customer ensuring the project meets business needs, the product owner ensuring the product meets business objectives and customer needs. Note we say product. Note the customer here, we use that word project, but in an agile environment, we may not even use that word project. We may use the word product solely. The Scrum Master ensures agile principles and practices are followed, and the developers develop and test code according to requirements. All right, now we are done with the more strategic, businessy stuff. Now, you who is studying for the CAPM or maybe the PMP, you can spend some time getting a clearer idea of the knowledge areas. So let's go over these one by one. As far as integration, the project manager develops the project management plan. We could call it a project integration plan. The confluence of everything, that's on the project manager. As far as the sponsor, they provide input on integration. The customer provides input. The product owner ensures product increments are integrated properly, prioritizes the product backlog to ensure product components integrate properly. So when we use the word integration here, we're not talking about the project documents like we do in PMBOK. When we talk about integration in the world of Agile, not only are we talking about integrating the moving parts of documents, we are more focused, as you can see in this language, about integrating the releases, integrating whatever increments we're getting from the project. Then we have the Scrum Master, facilitates integration activities during sprint planning, sprint reviews, and retrospectives. So for the Scrum Master, they're more into the integrating of the traditional things, but the job actually falls more in the lap of the developers. So the developers ensure product increments integrate properly with overall product development effort, collaborate with other team members to ensure integration, and that's key. Team members, the developers, they are integrating between each other, whether it's documentation or something else. Next, we have scope. The project manager defines scope, they manage scope, they create the scope statement, the WBS, all that stuff. The sponsor provides guidance on the scope. The customer defines and approves product scope. They are obviously involved in inspection. The product owner defines and prioritizes product features, manages the product backlog to align with business objectives. And one thing to note about scope, you have this product backlog mentioned. That is what we understand our scope to be. We don't use WBSs or project scope statements. Everything is either in that product backlog or it's been whittled down into smaller chunks in the sprint backlog. The Scrum Master ensures the team delivers the agreed upon product increments, facilitates sprint reviews to ensure scope is met. The developers develop and test the product features according to the product backlog, the requirements, the acceptance criteria, and so on. In terms of schedule, you know, in the world of traditional, there's a big old schedule. So the sponsor is involved in the monitoring and the approving of the schedule. We have other people that we could put under this customer bucket. We could say other stakeholders as well. And those stakeholders, they kind of get involved in the approval of a lot of these project documents. The product owner, we have define the product roadmap and release schedule. So when it comes to the roadmap and the way things overlap, like the marketing campaign, the releases, and so on, the features in the release, that is something the product owner should be well aware of. As far as the Scrum Master is concerned, facilitate sprint planning, manage sprint backlog, ensure team follows sprint schedule. And honestly, in a mature team, ain't nobody need no babysitting. So a lot of the more mature teams, they just do this stuff themselves. A Scrum Master is more involved in the removal of impediments and so on. But that's a placeholder for any kind of team. As far as the developers, they estimate the time and the effort required for the development tasks. When we create the product backlog, we don't have everything broken down at that point. So the customers have things that they want. It gets put into the product backlog, but it needs to be broken down hopefully before we get into sprint planning. So during the middle of the sprint, we meet to have that product backlog, the backlog refinement, and that is where we could estimate time and effort using planning poker or affinity estimating or things like that. And that is where the team, estimates time and effort. And again, not every team finds value from this. A lot of mature agile teams, they say skip when it comes to hours. They don't like hourly estimates, but that's not every team. Remember, this is a matrix to help you see things from a hybrid perspective. So just take it with a pinch of salt and tailor it, okay, to meet your specific needs. All right, develop and manage project budget, track expenses against the budget. That's project manager. The sponsor provides funding. The customer pays for the project cost. The product owner prioritizes the product backlog to maximize value and manage cost and manage project budget. So even though it's not explicitly spoken about in any of the guides that we use for these exams, of course, there's going to be a monetary element, and the product owner should be well aware of it. Remember, they're the mouthpiece for the business, so they should understand the play of cost on the project. The Scrum Master ensures the team works accurately and efficiently. The Scrum Master could be involved in that in instances where costs need to be managed and identify and manage cost risk. It is not uncommon, but everyone on the team should be thinking at this level, not just the Scrum Master. The developers develop cost estimates where necessary for development tasks. They manage time and effort spent on development. Now, I know some of you are saying, like, what? Do they actually do that? Of course. Who do you think does it? It has to be the team because they know the work. They're the developers. So it's not the product owner under a rock or the Scrum Master doing this in isolation. When it comes to cost, everyone needs to jump in where the project is quite cost heavy. In terms of quality, the project manager develops and maintains a quality management plan. They define the standards, the metrics, they ensure quality of the project deliverables, and so on. The sponsor provides input on quality. The customer provides input on quality management, and they make sure that those standards that are near and dear to them are upheld. The product owner defines the product quality standards, and in the world of Agile, we use two concepts. We use the concept of the definition of done, and we also talk about acceptance criteria. Now, definition of done pertains to the entire increment. Acceptance criteria pertains to a particular story. So those things could also come in handy here. Just keep those in mind. So when we talk about quality standards, there could be standards from an external source, but we have our own internal benchmark, our own internal standards of what definition of done means and what definition of ready means, which also could be looked at from a quality perspective because building prematurely could lead to poor quality. So we do need to think about the definition of ready as far as those stories. Do they meet the definition of ready before we begin working on them? So for the definition of ready, a good acronym is the INVEST acronym. So independent, negotiable, valuable, estimable, small enough to fit within a sprint, and testable. Those could help guide you as far as the quality level of those stories before you begin working on them. All right, facilitates team collaboration on quality standards and metrics and so on. That is a Scrum Master. And develop and test code according to quality standards and metrics. We could also use words such as acceptance criteria and definition of done, of course, for the developers because they need to weigh in on those definitions of ready and done in something that we would call a team charter or team contract, team agreement, social contract, whichever document that is in. All right, let's go to resources. So here in resources, the project manager identifies and acquires project resources, very much involved in the resource management. The sponsor provides input on the resource plan and ensures resources are available. They are very able to wrestle resources, like not physically, but in the company, right? When you've got either human or physical resources that are needed, they could persuade the functional heads who own those resources or who the resources report to, who individuals, And the word resource isn't really a great word. It's better to use team, but you get the idea. As far as customers are concerned, they provide resources as needed. They ensure customer resources are available. So within the customer group, there might be certain individuals or items that are needed. So the customer provides those. The product owner ensures that product development teams have the necessary resources to deliver product increments. If they don't have the resources, how are they going to do it? The Scrum Master facilitates team collaboration and ensures the team has the necessary resources to complete the sprint objectives. And remember, the Scrum Master is a roadblock remover, an impediment remover, if you will. So, of course, the Scrum Master is active in that sense. It could be an impediment if you don't have the resources you need. All right, the developers, they work with the project manager and the team where there is a project manager. Remember, this is a hybrid environment. It's heavily matrixed. So I'm providing you with context that you can take back to the real world and use. This is not a be-all, end-all. It's meant for you to tweak it and create what works for you in your world of hybridization. Because I've worked with some teams, and these teams have a project manager and they have a scrum master. So this matrix is the beginning of you customizing it and you delineating fact from fiction. What is peculiar to your team? That's the idea about this. It's not just a study tool for the exam, but it's meant to help you get to that next level, all right? For those of you just coming, we're taking a look at this matrix which I created. I call it the hybrid RAM, and it's really for you to see the responsibilities assigned to each of the roles in a hybrid environment where you have a project manager, product owner, scrum master, which is almost unheard of because even in the Agile practice guide, it says that there is not necessarily a specific thing that the project manager is relegated to in the world of Agile. It says the project manager becomes a servant leader. So you've got to be thinking more about being a servant than being at the center. Being at the center is centralized leadership, and that's more like the project manager. But the scrum master is a servant leader, and in an Agile environment, the project manager, where they exist on the horizon in the business, they are also encouraged to be servant leaders. How can I help you? A posture of help and service. All right, finally here we have the developers work with the project manager and the team to identify and acquire necessary resources for development tasks. And this is where the project manager can help and do some legwork and acquire whatever things are needed for the team where that model exists, where you've got that hybrid model. All right, moving on to communication. Develop and maintain communication management plan. That's the project manager. Provide input on communication is the sponsor. Communicate with the project team and stakeholders. And then for the product owner, we have communicate with the project team and stakeholders. For the scrum master, facilitate team collaboration and knowledge sharing, managing stakeholder expectations, conflicts, and showing effective communication. You got to remember, we're talking about hybrid, right? So anything could happen. As far as the developers, communicate the project status and issues to project manager and the team. You know that generally in a very heavily agile environment, we don't do status. But in a hybrid environment, it's very possible that developers find themselves caught up in the status trap. And I don't begrudge any company that does that, right? To each his own. But just be aware that if you're working in a more agile, cadenced environment, why are you doing the whole status thing? At the end of the time box, they said they would be done. So surely you don't have to nickel and dime status. So just be aware, whatever works for you and depending on the maturity of your team, some teams that are young in the process, they may need a little bit of hand-holding in that respect. All right. So as far as communications are concerned, we have pretty much all of that done. Okay, we have, let's go over that. So develop and maintain communication management plan, provide input on communication, communicate with team, and I believe we've done the communications piece. Let's go on to risk. So risk is a very important area in both agile and predictive environments, and therefore in hybrid, you would expect all hands to be on deck where this is concerned. So the project manager is the spearheading person who works with the team to identify the project risks, not in isolation, but identify and manage the project risk by spearheading that effort, and develop and maintain the risk management plan and the risk register or risk log, if you will. The sponsor provides input on project risks. The customers are also involved in identifying and communicating project risks to the project team. Ultimately, when we have risk identification exercises, risk meetings, the customer should be there. The product owner identifies and manages product risks, prioritizes the product backlog to mitigate risk as well. You probably have thought about it that the product owner, when they are prioritizing the backlog, they do it from a variety of angles. They do it from the angle of value, they do it from the angle of risk, and they could do it from the angle of complexity. So what you choose to do first, you want to do the big ticket value items that have the largest amount of risk. And someone says, but why is that? Well, if they have risk and complexity at a high level, but they're also very valuable, there's no escaping it. You have to do it. So why don't you do it first so that the complexity and the risk is reduced over time than waiting to the end and there's a big bang and then you flop and then you don't deliver what is most valuable? It doesn't make sense. So this area is actually a very important one for the product owner. As far as the Scrum Master is concerned, facilitate risk management activities. Remember, an impediment is just a risk that has happened. A risk is an impediment waiting to happen. And therefore, the Scrum Master should be proactive in terms of those risks. I know in the Agile Puritan setting, we don't talk about that stuff a whole lot. But as a good Scrum Master, as good Agilists, it should be happening in the background. All right, moving on, we got developers identify and manage technical risks. Remember, things of a technical nature usually falls into their court, and they should be communicating those risks back to the project manager, the Scrum Master, the team, and so on. All right, we're going into procurement now. We've talked about this a little bit. In terms of procurement, the project manager develops and manages the procurement management plan. There's a procurement strategy, procurement statements of work, bid documents, and so many other things. That's the project manager's job, working with the team, but they spearhead that. And then the sponsor provides input on procurement strategies. A lot of times the sponsors are these wise old sages in the company that know a lot. They know the history of certain vendors and suppliers, so it's a good place to pull them in. The customer provides input on procurement strategy, participates in vendor selection process where necessary. The product owner identifies and manages procurement risks, works with vendors to deliver required components. The Scrum Master facilitates vendor management activities during sprint planning, sprint reviews, and sprint retrospectives. A lot of times you have these vendors coming in as an add-on to the team, and the Scrum Master needs to facilitate all of those interfaces. Developers work with the project manager and the team to identify and select vendors, negotiate contracts, and manage vendor relationships. Those are project management related stuff. And then finally, we have the stakeholder. Stakeholder area is very important in the world of traditional because we have these four processes of identify, plan the engagement, then manage the engagement and monitor the engagement. And the project manager is front and center of all of that. The sponsor could provide input on stakeholder management, stakeholder engagement planning should be the right word, engaging with stakeholders as needed. The customer participates in stakeholder engagement activities and provides input on expectations and requirements. And we could also get the customer involved in giving us a survey at the end of the project, or even intermittently. We shouldn't wait until the end of the project. We should do something similar to a Net Promoter Score, where we ask the customer, how likely is it for you to recommend us? Are we doing a great job? On a scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel about this project and our performance, and how we're engaging you and so on? All right, the product owner engages with stakeholders to gather feedback and ensure the product meets the customer needs and the business goals. Of course, we talk about the sprint review where we could get some very direct feedback. But remember, this is a hybrid environment, and here we're talking about the aspect of stakeholders in particular. As far as Scrum Master is concerned, they should facilitate stakeholder engagement during sprint reviews and product demonstrations, manage stakeholder expectations, and resolve conflict. And of course, anyone on the team could wear this hat, but those are some of the things the Scrum Master should check the box on and make sure it's being done. Lastly, we have the developers communicating with the project manager and product owner regarding stakeholder feedback and expectations, collaborating with the team to address stakeholder concerns. And there you have it, my friends. I'm sorry if some of the screen was obscured as I was whizzing through that stuff, but hey, I've got a link for you to go download the PDF, and you could go over it yourself, and you can use it as a benchmark for how you define roles and responsibilities in your company. So why don't you go on down to this link? It's tinyurl.com/hybrid RAM, because it's a responsibility assignment matrix of sorts, all right? tinyurl.com/hybrid RAM. I hope you found this to be helpful. Those of you who've been asking a lot, these roles, how do I separate fact from fiction? How do I think about them? I'm hoping that this helps you as a guide. But just remember, overall, in the world of Agile, there is no hard and fast role for the project manager, but where there's a confluence of the worlds, we have the Agile approach and the predictive approach coming together. This could be the beginning of your thinking. I hope this helps. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe, share with your friends, and I'll see you in the next video. You take care and bye for now.